What are the major characteristics of effective sales compensation systems?
I think when examining sales compensation programs, you would find a lot of characteristics. You would want to see things that are motivational to the sales force. But I think the key word that you have to dwell on and focus on is the word alignment. A sales organization is basically suspended between two independent variables. One is customers, and the other variable is the product divisions. At any given time, the customer population needs and appetite for purchasing can be changing, and at any given time, the product manager's focus in terms of what they want sold through the sales organization may be changing. As a result of that, the sales force is constantly trying to create what's called alignment between the product divisions and the customer buying populations. Anytime alignment needs to be redone, most likely that will cause the compensation program to have to be redone also. So if you ever experience, or clients ever and companies experience failures in their sales compensation programs, it usually can be diagnosed simply as misalignment. In other words, measures that are no longer appropriate, suggestions of pay at risk that are inappropriate for the client relationship. A good illustration would be if you were a salesperson who was responsible for recruiting distributors. That's a very aggressive job that has a lot of pay at risk and generally has a high reward associated with it. There's a subsequent job called managing existing distributors. It might in fact be the same person, but the job has changed. So the issue of alignment has arisen, and we're no longer in alignment. We once had a pay system and a management model for recruiting distributors. Now we have a management model for managing those distributors, and as a result of that, one of the things that a sales organization must fight against is obsolescence, and obsolescence and alignment are the two extremes. And consequently, the compensation programs can become misaligned with what the business objectives are.
Effective sales compensation systems can be very positive for a company, but what makes sales compensation systems fail?
Well, as I mentioned, this misalignment, and I would say in a very colloquial sense, is that sales management sometimes takes their eye off the ball. They start to allow the compensation program not to be reviewed and updated each year. They use an expression called tweaking the plan. And of course, if you take a look at a large sales organization, let's take a sales organization of 1,000 sales representatives, there might be 20 different jobs and consequently 20 different compensation programs. Well, at any given time, this alignment issue is challenging them, and if you make minor changes non-contextually amongst all the jobs, you could actually create a very disruptive and distracting environment for the sales personnel, wondering why they're being rewarded, which is for a behavior that's inconsistent with their objective. Now, there is even other misdesigned compensation programs that actually can make the headlines. These are designs that actually promote the wrong type of behavior, and illustrations that you can actually read in newspapers would be, for example, in the 1980s, I believe Sears Automotive had an incentive program for their service writers, and the Sears Automotive service writer was encouraged to sell you additional auto services even though you just were there for a battery. Well, that incentive program prompted unethical selling practices, and the state of California investigated Sears Automotive and fined them millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, I believe, that actually put Sears Automotive out of the auto service business and returned them into installing batteries again. So you can get some very unusual behaviors out of people. It's not that the service managers went unethical, but they were pushed to a point where they were suggesting and advising customers to buy items that maybe it was not appropriate at that time to purchase those types of things.
Many of the students watching this video will be thinking of going into careers in sales, at least as an initial job. What would you say they should look out for as regards sales compensation?
That's a great question, and by the way, I'm a absolute firm supporter of careers in sales. It's a wonderful way to get a business career started. It's a great education for learning about how business works. So selling is I just think it's a wonderful entry point into the business community. If you do accept a position as a sales representative, or you're considering that, of course, one of the things that's going to be presented to you is your compensation program. And to be frank, they're, on first glance, pretty confusing. And if you're not in the company when this offer is being made to you, it could be very hard to interpret what's being said. So, of course, hopefully you're with a reputable company that is representing itself well and in a truthful fashion. But one of the things that I would do is if I was offered a sales representative job with a compensation program, I would ask the hiring manager to spend a few minutes with me explaining the program. Now that would be very, very telling. If that manager can actually walk you through and describe each of the features of the compensation program, you have a pretty good confidence that they know what they're doing, they understand how the program works, and there will be, you'll have an opportunity to benefit by that compensation program. I would also take time and ask if I could speak to another sales representative. There's a terminology used in the sales community called ride-along. So if I was being offered a position, I might ask the hiring manager if I could take a ride-along with a sales representative, a half day or a full day of time, in which I can then ask questions of the sales representative. What's working well? What do you enjoy about your job? And in addition, how does the compensation program work? For example, you might have been told that you could earn substantial sums of money. Is this plausible? And what is the likelihood of earning those levels of money? I think good investigation would be appropriate in those instances.
Well, Dave, thank you very much for giving us your insight into sales compensation.